I just made $3,000 day trading SPY. If I go over here, you can see the P&L for the day is that 3K. I'm going to show you the exact way I did it and how you could do it as well. So I did two things. The first thing is my pure day trading strategy, which is unbelievably simple. So if I zoom in here, what I did is that at 9:30 a.m. CST, I came to the computer and I basically looked to the left and said, what's the highest zone of the day, which is a fancy term to basically say, what's the highest price point of the day where two candles agree. And that ended up being 600.91. So I drew a line plus a 10-cent rectangle downward. And that basically says, okay, hey, when something hits that zone and comes back and breaks, or sorry, excuse me, bounces on top of the zone and goes upward, then I can take an option call to make my money. And you can see it's exactly what it did. Came down, so excuse me, break up, came back down, hit the zone, and started bouncing up from, what is it, 601 to basically 602, give or take, within an hour period. And that's where I made 3K within the 1 hour. And so if we go showing you the exact entry, this is that exact thing, but this is the 1 minute chart. So you can see if I zoom in a little bit for you, came around, came to hit it, zone candle reversal confirmation, nothing here, but then entry because visually it's going in an upward direction. So the entry is right here, that 1122, and then it literally just kept going up, and I exited basically at the top, interestingly enough, because it started going sideways here and also sideways here. So it made me kind of rethink little things here, and that was fine because you can see I basically kind of caught the top. And so you may be asking, well, cool, Maurice, I understand that, and it makes sense, but how the heck did you know it was going to go on an uptrend? Well, I knew that because, as stated in the video before, 1 day ago on my video here, Idiot Proof Strategy to make 100K, I basically called out the exact zones that I'm about to reference as part two that made me know I'm going to enter a call if X happens. So you could have basically copied the exact thing here on this video and made the same money. Not saying to do that, but just a heads up. And the piece that I'm talking about is the following. If I go to my other grid here, this is still SPY, but this is the daily chart. Oh, and let me re-put this here. This is still the daily chart. And look at this. These are the three zones that I basically have. And it's basically we had a high here, we had a low, high here, that's a little bit lower, a low, so on and so forth. And it was showing that things were going on a lower basis every time it rejected. But as you can see, this candle broke above this, along with this current day's candle broke above this, which says, hey, the trend is at the moment shifting potentially to going more calls, going more upside. As a result, once it breaks above this zone, we actually have an opportunity to make more money with upside to the calls. Hence, I made the 3K so because it broke above this area. That's part one, which again, I walked through in the other video in much, much more detail. Part two of this additional piece is that if we zoom in on to the 5 minute chart, basically, look at the 5 minute chart, which we again, by the way, had drew a zone on initially. This, let me zoom in a little more. You can see it opened up, fell into the zone for this daily, bounced out of the zone, and then started going upward. You could have basically entered only just because of this. But if we switch to, remember that zone we drew earlier on the 5 minute chart? If we go to this piece, it's right at the top. So this confirmed this because the bouncing upward, saying it's going to, if this is bouncing off this and the daily chart is bouncing off of this zone, then we have further confirmation that entering above it makes the most sense. So that's essentially how I made the $3,000 in basically 1 hour, essentially, and how also before I've been using this exact same strategy so far for this month of January, where I think I've made $28,000 or so in total, 15K for one trade, 10K for another trade, 3K for an additional trade, and now the other 3K for, I guess, a total of $31,000 so far for January 2025.